Ooh, hey, how's it going? Happy Sunday, everyone. Day before the premiere of 610. Really looking forward to talking about this one. Hey, what is up? Hope everyone is having a great day, had a great day wherever you are all over the world. So, hey, how's it going? Arena Vision, Almeida's Army. How's it going? How's it going? Travis Gray, Kevin Swiber, Flavier. Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up, Nick Russ? All right then. Ooh, man. So yeah, really looking forward to this one for sure. A lot to talk about, sort of, I would say. Not so much was released by the creators officially for this upcoming episode, that's for sure. But there are a fair bit of spoilers, I would say, heading into this next episode, and I will try to address some of them for sure. So, and this may be kind of a spoiler heavy ish stream, if you will. Again, obviously, no specific plot details for sure. That's for sure. I mean, nothing in respect to the plot per se, but a lot of just sort of things that sort of leaked out before this episode that was not released in an official capacity, if you will. And even shout out to Courtney Reviews for posting that Reddit information in the community post that I posted before the stream. So shout out Courtney Reviews if you're seeing this. So yeah, more or less finally in the Breaking Bad timeline. Again, at Daniel Sevilla Jr., you say we're officially in the Breaking Bad timeline. I was actually thinking about that a little bit this week, about what technically constitutes the Breaking Bad timeline, because, I mean, maybe technically, if you want to be a stickler, Daniel, maybe the Breaking Bad timeline doesn't officially start until Walter White's 50th birthday, if you will. So again, you wonder, again, if we're in 2005, and again, I will talk about that a little bit too, in respect to what Thomas Schnauz said this week about this very infamous shot here of this license plate that we saw at the end of the previous episode. So yeah, at T, very interesting username right there. Yeah, I'm going to go over the Reddit stuff again. Spoiler warning here for sure. Again, nothing in respect to the plot per se, just on some things that have been reported and some sort of leaks, if you will, that have come out before this episode, because again, there really isn't too much to talk about for sure in respect to this episode. So, because if we go to the description for this episode that was released, at least in the English language, sort of foreshadowing here, the episode title is Nippy. I've heard rumors of supposed to be bromine and barium or something to that effect. Again, I don't know if that's a vicious rumor. I haven't seen anything out there really besides just absolute rumors. But of course, the episode description for this episode is a new player gets in the game. And again, it could be anyone. It could be Walt. It could be Jesse. It could be this new character, Marion. Again, a very cryptic tagline here. Didn't release anything very specific for sure in respect to this upcoming episode. And even this sort of photo that was sort of placed here in the IMDb photo page, they say this is apparently a photo for the upcoming episode, and also this was also tweeted out by the Better Call Saul Twitter page this week as well. But if we go back and look at that scene of Saul Goodman at the very end of the previous episode, we can see that Francesca is basically wearing this exact same outfit that was tweeted in this photo that's also been posted to IMDb. That's apparently a spoiler for this upcoming episode. So unless we're picking up in a direct continuation from when Saul said, "Let justice be done though the heavens fall," and it's the exact same day, then I would think that, this is from the previous episode. But who knows for sure? It's just food for thought. Maybe something to think about heading into the next episode. I don't know what that was. But at Almeida's Army, thank you so much for the super chat. Still don't have a title for next week's episode. Do we read anything into that? Spoiler title. Also, will Cheryl's practice come into play in the Gene timeline? I don't know. I'm not to kind of work backwards. And again, thank you so much for the super chat at Almeida's Army. In respect to Cheryl's practice, again, that's a whole nother thing that sort of ties into the end of the previous episode in respect to the memorial service of Howard Hamlin. And again, it's sort of the fact that Cheryl's a lawyer, that sort of makes me sort of harken back to the dialogue that Clifford Maine said to Kim Wexler about how his son had substance abuse problems, and it almost turned into a meme a little bit about who is Clifford Maine's son. Will we see Clifford Maine's son? And in the end, we almost certainly won't see him, unless, of course, that sort of crazy off the top of my head theory about how the person that the cab driver Jeff brought with him to see Gene in Omaha at the shopping mall was somehow Clifford Maine's son. But yeah, again, I don't know if sort of Cheryl's practice will come into play. It's possible, I suppose. But again, in respect to sort of Cheryl's appearance in the previous episode, I think it was sort of to maybe humanize her a bit, and also to sort of add another layer of nuance to the relationship that they were having over the course of the very, very small glimpse into the relationship that we saw, where she seemed kind of jaded and they were having some relationship problems. But at the same time, even if maybe they were having some difficulties in their marriage, at the same time, we don't know what all relationships are like. All relationships are very unique and different. And I would say, I saw some people say those were crocodile tears because of how her relationship was going with her husband. But at the same time, again, we don't know. People mourn in all sorts of different ways, and she still could have very genuinely cared about Howard Hamlin, despite her, maybe, for lack of a better term, just very, I don't know, jaded personality when we first saw her. So again, I don't know if her practice will play into it. I think it was just sort of to humanize her, why they had her be a lawyer in the first place, just to sort of add more depth and layers to her, as opposed to her just being this sort of, sort of sad spouse, if you will. And in respect to the titles, I'm not surprised at all. They're definitely playing this close to the vest. Definitely, this is breaking from the X and Y title scheme that we've seen through the first 9 episodes, so that in and of itself is pretty cryptic, and I would imagine they're going to play those pretty close to the vest in respect to the titles. And yeah, I haven't seen anything in regards to episode 610, or no, excuse me, episode 611, 12, and 13, the final 3 of this series. And so yeah, can't wait to see what happens for sure, and maybe it will have some sort of Breaking Bad reference. Maybe Bromine and Barium or Breaking in Bad will be a title of one of these upcoming episodes. Who knows? But, just food for thought here for sure. So thanks to you again, Almeida's Army, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. How's it going, Reeds? I'm doing well. But yeah, so again, not a lot was released in this upcoming episode for sure. And again, you can kind of see the thumbnail for this video, and it has been reported, and it was reported a long time ago, actually. I think in this article here in the Albuquerque Journal. Again, I don't know if it was actually that long ago, but apparently, again, not that long ago, actually last week. But again, according to this article, and actually, I first saw this Deadline article, actually, trying to click out the ads here, but this Deadline article here basically said that the Journal also reports Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston will appear on July 25th, so tomorrow's episode 610. That's been the reporting that's been out there for episode 10, and this is apparently the Journal article they linked. And but it was kind of interesting here. They actually just quoted, I think they cited IMDb as their source for saying they already updated both actors' filmography pages showing they will appear in episode 10. But again, IMDb, at least for my sort of referencing of it, has been very historically inaccurate over the course of season 6 so far. So again, this is the reporting, the Albuquerque Journal. It's pretty big. Isn't it the biggest newspaper in Albuquerque, New Mexico? So it would be quite the misreporting here for sure if it wasn't correct. But you would think they would be in the know, but it is what it is. So that's at least what I've seen in respect to Walter White and Jesse Pinkman appearing. So at Pulsura, that's an interesting perspective. Who knows? Maybe. Who knows? In respect to maybe Howard signed a prenup or something to that effect. We don't know what the sort of Howard Hamlin's will looked like. I guess, I don't know, it would be kind of a complicated storyline, maybe. You would think that maybe she would take over HHM, but according to Rich Schweigert's dialogue at the end of that previous episode at Howard Hamlin's memorial service, it appears that, HHM just doesn't really exist in Breaking Bad, and I think that was kind of the intention by the creators for sure. So but yeah, in respect to Cheryl, I definitely think that was just to sort of humanize her and just add sort of different layers of sort of depth and nuance to that relationship where, like I talked about a little bit earlier based on Almeida's Army's super chat, despite the fact their relationship was, maybe disintegrating, I still think she genuinely, loved him and was very upset by his death. I don't think she reveled in it per se. And again, we don't know, no, I'm not looking for a Mercedes. Yeah, again, I am not looking for Mercedes. That is for damn sure. But again, we don't know how people mourn, and it's very different for everyone. So Yeah, David Warski. I've seen those rumors about how Bryan Cranston Walter White has a scene, Jesse Pinkman has a scene, and apparently they're in a scene together. So appreciate it, Noah Godby. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for the compliment on my videos. So. But yeah, so before we sort of get into this next episode, one very critical piece in regards to speculating on what happens next actually has to do with this timeline right here. And of course, when I first saw this license plate, I'm like, okay, November of '05, and I actually saw a very sort of, I would say, just intelligent comment on Reddit about how this is sort of their interpretation was this was a much more classy and less in-your-face sort of way than saying 1 year later. You know how sometimes when a movie flashes, there's a flash forward in a movie and you see 1 year later. This was a much more subtle way of doing it, and I really sort of that's at least what I thought for sure when I first saw this for sure. We're a year in the future. We're in the year 2005, about 1 year. Forward from when Jimmy and Kim broke up in June of 2004. But of course, we also saw that handicap placard that was set to expire in November of '08, so a little bit questionable there. I know people have said that handicap placards can be good for 3-4 years. But then, of course, if I can find it, hopefully working backwards. So, yes, so this post here on Reddit, because actually I don't use Twitter, but someone posted this to Twitter. At Just Dan, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. What's up, Anton? Hope all is well. Do you think we're going to get a Walt scene as a teacher, or do you think it'll be more of a flash forward scene? That is a great question, at Just Dan, for sure. And actually, the point you're raising right there is actually exactly what I'm going to get into right now, because as I said, if we even want to have a somewhat, even a remedial semblance of trying to predict what is going to happen in this next episode, we need to know what year it is. And again, the license plate, as I talked about, as well as the handicap placard, and I'm doing well, Just Dan. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. I hope you're doing well as well. But again, when you say, do you think we're going to get a Walter White scene as a teacher or more of a flash forward scene, that actually very serendipitously goes right into the point I was trying to make here. And again, thank you so much for the support for the channel. I really appreciate it. But so someone asked Thomas Schnauz on Twitter this week about Saul's Saul's tab or license plate registration expiration date says '05, as we saw right here, but his handicap sign says '08. How far ahead did we jump? And of course, Thomas Schnauz says, I think we're roughly in '07. So a little bit of a head scratcher here, because if we take Thomas Schnauz at his word, and again, he's a creator of this series and he's in the know, then I guess this means Saul is driving around with expired tags, because you absolutely need you absolutely need to have your tags up to date. And you would imagine that someone who's as sort of shady of a lawyer and deals in these sort of criminal dealings wouldn't open himself to a very easy fix of just renewing your tags. Why would Saul want to put himself through all of this unwanted attention and unwanted stress, even potentially? And again, the point I'm trying to raise here with Thomas Schnauz is I think he may be trolling us a little bit, or maybe being intentionally disingenuous, because I was actually going back and looking at some of the other tweets that he sent over the course of this season, and even, before production. And actually, very interestingly here too, this was actually I saw this week as well, where someone on Twitter responded to him and said, did you say somewhere that the show would not address the phone call in 405? And I think this was his tweet right here. And at Kate Valentine, thank you so much for the super chat. You rock, Anton. You're too kind, Kate Valentine. I love that emoji. I sure love that emoji. That's for damn sure. So really appreciate the support, Kate Valentine. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. But again, and yeah, sweet emoji there. One of my favorite emojis. That's for damn sure. But anyway, this person right here asked Thomas Schnauz, again, sort of going, piggybacking off of when he said, we think we're roughly in '07 despite the license plate. He said, did you say somewhere that the show would not address the phone call in the 405 teaser? And again, of course, he's talking about the episode entitled Quite a Ride, Season 4, Episode 5 of Quite a Ride, the sort of only flash forward scene to the Breaking Bad timeline that we've seen so far. Again, I've discussed it in a couple previous videos, but of course the gist of it is Saul Goodman says to Francesca, where are you going to be on my birthday? I believe at 2 o'clock, but at a payphone, and basically saying if it's not there at, I think, 2 o'clock on the dot, excuse me if I'm sort of a little bit off on the time there, I'm gone. And of course, he also said when the police want to talk to you, and they will, what do you tell them? Talk to my lawyer, tell them, and then he gives them the business card saying, tell them Jimmy sent you. And again, without sort of having to get into the nitty-gritty of all of that, again, I've talked about that in previous videos. At 3 p.m., thank you, Noah Godby. Not 2 p.m., 3 p.m., thank you. But Thomas Schnauz basically said the phone call will never be addressed. But he responded this week and said, I made a joke about it. Nothing is confirmed. So, again, it's like, when he said that the phone call was not addressed, everyone said, oh, of course. I mean, he's a creator. We have to take him at his word. This is canon. This is effectively gospel. But at the same time, he just said he was joking about it. Nothing is confirmed. So at the same time, I know people said, well, this ends the debates. We're definitely in '07. Thomas Schnauz said we're in '07. We're not in '05. But again, he did say the phone call won't be addressed. And now he said, I made a joke about it. Nothing is confirmed. So maybe the phone call will be addressed. So again, I think he's sort of trolling a little bit. I'm sure he is absolutely just inundated with fan requests, and rightfully so. There's a lot of passionate fans about the show. Twitter's an open public forum where you can just, write to these people. I'm sure he gets tons of mentions and tons of, questions. And at a certain point, of course, he can't answer all of them, and maybe he wants to just blow off some steam and have some fun with them. So, again, a little bit sort of cryptic here for sure in respect to this, because I remember when I saw this, I'm like, oh, I guess they aren't going to adjust the tweet to the teaser. That does seem kind of akin to going against everything of the Chekhov's gun premise, because why did they even show us the scene in the first place? I mean, maybe to juxtapose Saul Goodman's, I think that was the episode when he started working at CC Mobile, the very first time he started selling burner phones, to the very last time he ripped a burner phone in half when he, called Ed to disappear and said that he was red hot and needed to be, extracted. I thought maybe that's the premise, but then why did you put in all this throwaway dialogue here in the first place? So, again, just some food for thought for sure. And again, I think I have some more Thomas Schnauz tweets here for sure. But, and again, another one right here. Again, this one was pretty infamous as well, but right prior to episode 607, Plan and Execution, Thomas Schnauz tweeted, just to warn everyone, we wrote season 6 of Better Call Saul to be aired as 13 continuous episodes, but various delays, i.e. Bob Odenkirk's medical event, split the season in half, so 607 was not written or filmed as a traditional cliffhanger. And maybe that's technically true. Again, he's telling such a half-truth here, but he knew what he was doing. I mean, when the cliffhanger is, spoiler alerts, Howard Hamlin being killed by Lalo Salamanca is not a traditional cliffhanger, he clearly knew what he was doing. In the same, so again, he kind of said I was joking about the phone call. He clearly was trolling us in respect to this cliffhanger tweet here. So again, when he says I think we're roughly in '07, is he sort of saying, again, is he being serious? Is he being disingenuous? I genuinely don't know. So again, I know people said, I even think, the tweet said this clears the air, the discussion ends, but I'm not so sure. And so we really don't know what year it's going to be. So kind of going back to, I believe it was Just Dan who, sent this the message here saying, are we going to get a Walt scene as a teacher? Well, I mean, if it's prior to 2008, September of '08 when he turned 50, we know that the whole premise of Breaking Bad is that Walter White was Mr. Chips, who never did a bad thing in his life. And at Richie MC, I see the super chat. I'll get to it for sure. So again, if it's '05 and it's going to be '05 and 610, and we didn't have a great advancement in the timeline from when Saul said, "Let justice be done, those the heavens fall," and he opens up his practice for the day, then I mean, yeah, I guess you would imagine it would have to be as him as a teacher. So because it really wouldn't make any sense whatsoever to have a Walter White scene outside of that. So again, you wonder, I mean, again, I don't know how this is gonna take place. I wonder, are we gonna see maybe a sort of cold opening flash forward to the Breaking Bad timeline, and the actual episode itself will take place in this sort of, '05/07 time period. So again, we just don't know. We'd have to know the date for sure. That's very, very important in respect to Walter White's appearance. Jesse Pinkman, not so much, because he was basically doing this ever since he left high school. Clearly was doing his thing with Emilio. Captain Cook with his, the shit you cook is shit, to quote Walter White in the pilot episode of Breaking Bad. So again, that is the question at Just Dan. And again, I couldn't tell you unless we knew the date, and I'm just trying to figure it out here. So At Richie MC, thank you so much for the super chat. Teaser correct with Walton Jesse and Jesse's car. Again, the thumbnail is a little bit of artistic license, if you will, at Richie MC, because I do not believe that there was a photo tweeted prior to this appearance. So again, I did not invent the artistic license or artistic liberties with the thumbnail, but maybe I'm in the school of it. So yeah, no, the teaser is again, maybe it will be correct. I don't know. It's a prediction. Maybe we will see a scene at that point in time around the season 2 era of Breaking Bad, somehow interjected into this upcoming plot of Better Call Saul. So at Richie MC, is that photo from this upcoming episode? Maybe it might be. So again, really appreciate the super chat at Richie MC. Thank you so much. Again, I see the super chats. I will get to them. At Arena Rocha, thank you so much for the super chat. Howard's case can't be officially closed until a body is found. Do you think this enters the plot in the final 4? Again, I don't know. I don't think so. Again, I saw a really sort of interesting take in respect to the Gus Fring wine scene that I discussed about in a previous video. I believe the user's name was Orange County, and his sort of premise on that scene was that once the sommelier David started talking about how you can taste the blood in the wine from the soil, this sort of made Gus think back to the fact that Lalo and Howard were in the super lab and he needed to sort of tie up this loose end even more, and he really needed to close the case. But again, you wonder, I mean, technically, maybe this could be sort of Gus Fring's sort of, for lack of a better term, neuroticism of him absolutely wanting to close this case definitively at Rena Roca. But at the same time, it would totally diminish, at least in my opinion, the just sort of unbelievable, just artistic brilliance, not to get too over the top here, of that scene of Howard and Lalo being buried in the super lab and being there the entire time. So, I mean, maybe they take Howard's body out and Lalo's body stays. I could maybe see that potentially. I guess it's possible. But again, I still think it sort of ruins the sort of romanticism, of the very twisted romanticism of that scene, Rena Rocha. So, a good question. You wonder. But again, as Mike said, for all intents and purposes, it's over. So, you do wonder. I like that. So that was an interesting take by the user Orange County in the comment section of that video. So, it's food for thought. I don't know. But yeah, like I said, it's possible, but I feel like it would diminish just the unbelievable ending of a point and shoot. So that's just my take on it. So it could enter the final 4, but again, I'm not really sure. And actually, I'm going to get to that a little bit. The sort of what comes next maybe for Mike and Gus, which is actually pretty interesting too when we think about it in these final 4 episodes, just based on how the previous 2 ended, in addition to the time jump, in addition to, Gus Fring standing in the cartel and all of that. So again, really appreciate the super chat, Rena Rocha. Thank you so much. Kevin Swiber, thank you so much for the super chat. Did you see the new characters on IMDb? Daughters, dock worker Kathy D. I didn't read the Reddit leak, but please warn if it's spoiler heavy or cast related. Thanks for excellent coverage. Yeah, I mean, it's not cast related. It's again, I wouldn't even say it's that big of a spoiler, but compared to a new player gets in the game, it is much more descriptive. The Spanish description that was sort of leaked, if you will. Someone took a screenshot or a photo of Spanish description for the upcoming episode, and it was much more descriptive. It didn't talk about any specific characters. It talked in very general sense. I mean, no more descriptive than a new player. I mean, it was actually a little bit more than that. It might have been much more descriptive and using sort of different adjectives and stuff like that. But yeah, I did see these more concrete characters. I mean, I saw that. I mean, Price has apparently was supposed to be in like the last episode too and didn't appear whatsoever. If I can find the episode here, and I see the other super chat, Richie MC. I will get to that. But at Kevin Swiber, let me try to. I did see those. Yeah, top cast for this upcoming episode, Nippy. But yeah, I saw. I mean, Carol Burnett, I mean, I think she was listed in the previous episode, but these characters like dock employee and employee, you would imagine that these are actual going to be characters here. And again, we couldn't even speculate on what's going to happen here. I mean, they could be so minor. I think they have to just, anyone who has a speaking role, I think has to be, credited in this way, daughter here and Kathy Deutsch. So again, way too ambiguous. I mean, we could impossible to even begin to speculate. But yes, I did see these, and I would imagine these are actual characters here who have some speaking role. But again, where I mean, I couldn't even begin to think where the story behind these characters are going to be. So, and yes, I will give an absolute spoiler warning before I talk about that Spanish language description. So. At Richie MC, thank you so much. BCS tomorrow and Shark Week life is good. Yeah, I agree. I agree for sure. I'm not the biggest fan of sharks in general, but much better to watch them on TV than to actually see them when you're swimming in the ocean. That's for damn sure. But yeah, I'm excited. I was really pumped for last week's episode, and again, I'm really excited for this one too. Just completely sort of a blank canvas, if you will. Just after Saul just walking, just walking into that office and that final sort of parting shot of him in his office here. Again, blank canvas. Clean slate. I can only imagine where the story's going to go in these final 4 episodes. I truly don't know. And not to mention, we still got to see, as Nero said, it's nippy weather in Nebraska. I'm guessing it shows him first getting there as Gene. Again, we haven't even seen the Gene timeline yet. So just so much still left to see in these final 4 episodes at Richie MC. And I am looking forward to it as well. And yeah, I would agree. I'm glad life is good for you. And, I'm doing well as well. So thank you again so much for the super chat. At Kevin Swiber, yes, I will be live tomorrow night after the stream, right? Not after the stream, after the episode, right after the episode airs. So I will be in there. So, but yeah, to kind of, again, so sort of talking about Thomas Schnauz here. Again, he's kind of trolling us for sure. So again, that's at least my sort of opinion of all of this. So again, in respect to the date, I can't really sort of take this at gospel. So at Trish D, thank you so much for the super chat. Think we see flashback teenage Kim and Nippy, Red Cloud, or think no more of Kim until finale? That's a great question. Again, I talked about that a little bit in my videos leading up to this week. And yeah, it's kind of surreal to think we likely won't see Kim in the next episode. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think Kim Wexler has been in every single episode of Better Call Saul with the exception of 5-0 in season 1, which she didn't appear, which was basically entirely devoted to Mike Ehrmantraut's backstory as a police officer and everything that happened with his son Matty there. Saul Goodman appeared at the very beginning, but the vast majority of the episode was the flashback oriented as well as the conversations he had with his daughter. And I do not believe Kim Wexler appeared in that episode. So again, at first I thought she has appeared in every episode, but then I remember I recalled back to 5-0 and she hasn't appeared in a 5-0 at Trish D. So yeah, I mean, crazy to think no Kim Wexler. I mean, I would imagine we're not going to see her in the next episode. Maybe we could see her as in a flashback of some kind. But again, I just don't know. I feel like, could we have a Walter White sort of flashback if we're in 2005 because he's in or I guess it would technically be a flash forward based on the proximity of where we are right now in 05. Could we have a Gene sort of scene finally? Are we going to wait until we get a Gene episode to sort of start the cold opening here? So is there going to be no cold opening? But at the same time, again, there's this photo here of this sort of mall or something to that effect here. I think they're shooting in Omaha, Nebraska, but again, the photos here are, like I said, are very questionable. Again, I think this photo is from 609. It's not even from 610. I mean, there's that teaser of Saul saying Armani suits, Air Jordan shoes, Lennon shirts, all for free, 1, 2, 3 actions. So can't really make heads or tails out of any of this. And so, yeah, I don't know. To tell you the truth, I don't know if it's going to be no Kim Wexler to the finale because, again, there's that sort of behind-the-scenes fan footage of her smoking that cigarette outside of the law offices of Saul Goodman and Associates at Trish D. But, yeah, I think it's going to be surreal. No Kim Wexler for the first time since 5-0 in Season 1. So that's sort of my prediction. I would imagine she's not even going to appear in this upcoming episode. I feel like it's going to truly sort of, display to us the part of Saul Goodman's life where Kim Wexler wasn't a part of it whatsoever. So it's something it's pretty sort of surreal to think about at Trish D. And thank you again so much for the super chat. Ooh, so yeah, I guess I mean, again, and in respect to, I guess I could talk a little bit about sort of what's next for Mike and Gus, but again, a lot of it depends on the year. But actually, to talk a little bit about Gus Fring, I did sort of think about that after the previous video I made in respect to that meeting that he had with the cartel. And what's actually kind of interesting is, despite the fact that everything is basically all sort of shorn up now, and he's in good standing with the cartel, it's kind of funny to think how he's not really going to be able to enact this revenge following this meeting at Don Eladio's hacienda. until the year 2009, if I'm not mistaken. So it's quite the sort of long game for Gus Fring when you think about it. It's crazy. I mean, the revenge is absolutely myopic. It's absolutely his reason for being. It's what gets him out of bed in the morning. He is truly devoted to it. Like, almost, I mean, it's almost like a religious sort of, excursion for him or something to that effect. It's just total devotion to this revenge against the cartel. So it's just, it's crazy to think how it's going to be 5 years until Gus Fring is able to enact this revenge. So as we sort of head forward, the point I'm trying to get at here is that as we finally head forward in the plot of season 6 of Better Call Saul in the year 2005, it's just, what is the sort of story have for Gus Fring now? Because he doesn't team up with Walter White until '08. After '08, and that again, that's 3 years down the road. Again, it all sort of hinges on what year we're in. Again, it's the $10 million question. It's really hard to speculate on, but it's just sort of crazy how Gus Fring really plays the long game. It's the long con here, where he's going to have to bide his time. He's going to have to make Don Eladio lots of money. Basically, it's going to be the status quo for Gus Fring with Juan Bolsa, and working under Juan Bolsa, having control of everything in the Northern Territory above the South Valley in Albuquerque. So just sort of food for thought here. I mean, I know people have talked about, maybe Declan could come into this story somehow. I've made videos about him in the past, based on Mike saying that he worked with Declan during his time with Fring. I believe he mentioned that in the episode entitled Buyout, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Buyout for sure. So yeah, I kind of wonder what's in store for characters like Mike and Gus. I mean, I don't think it's the sort of end for their characters at all by any stretch of the imagination. I know a lot of people have pointed out that following the deaths, spoiler alert, of characters such as Nacho Varga, Howard Hamlin, and Lalo Salamanca, they all sort of appeared on the Insider podcast to sort of, wrap up and tie a bow on their character, the finality of their characters. But, there wasn't any of that. There really wasn't a sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Is moratorium the right word? Or maybe that's not the right word. But there really wasn't sort of retrospective on characters like Kim Wexler, Mike Ehrmantraut, and Gus Fring. So you wonder, I'm sort of racking my head on what's next for Gus Fring when really he sort of, he really sort of doesn't appear to do too much, in respect to the sort of revenge. I speculated in my previous video, maybe, at the same time, maybe he had something to do with the death of Tuco somehow. Again, not directly, it is kind of interesting how even the cousins sort of, they viewed Walter White as the person to enact the sangre por sangre for, when Gus Fring himself said to them in the episode entitled Sunset, why this man, Walter White, he didn't pull the trigger. It was the agent of the DEA, the DEA, he's the one who pulled the trigger. And even they didn't even feel like enacting a revenge on Jesse Pinkman, who actually shot Tuco Salamanca with that AR-15. So yeah, just kind of sort of interesting sort of food for thought there about was, even though Gus Fring was myopically devoted to the revenge against the cartel and the Salamancas, and he wanted to bury all of them, he sort of, manipulated the strings and sort of had Marco and Leonel killed. But based on the backstory of Breaking Bad, as I discussed in my previous video, he really sort of didn't appear to have anything to do on the surface with the death of Tuco Salamanca. It was just sort of a happy coincidence where Walter White and Jesse Pinkman sort of stumbling into the sort of Albuquerque criminal underworld together sort of indirectly took out Tuco Salamanca. So you just sort of wonder, again, what was going on the entire time with all that with Gus Fring during that period of time. So at Dan Diamond, thank you so much for the super chat. Will we ever see a Gus flashback in Santiago? I don't think so, Dan Diamond. I just think there's just too much there, too much story. Again, the character looks so much older than he would be when he was living in Santiago. So again, I've talked about this in a couple past live streams. Dan Diamond, again, thank you so much for the super chat. I think there is an entire spinoff there in respect to Gus Fring's time in Chile. Fingers crossed for de-aging technology becoming precipitously cheaper in the decade to come. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't think so. I wouldn't bet on it. It would be quite the surprise if we saw a Gus Fring flashback, just based on the logistics of the aging of the character, and with there just being, there's just too much. I feel like there's just too much to tell, where I feel like even if we saw a flashback scene, it would just raise even more questions about Gus Fring's character than sort of, tie a bow on anything. So at Rena Rocha, of course, Tuco died in the shootout with Hank Schrader in Season 2 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Grilled. A very climactic scene for sure. Yeah, great quotes there. At you waste my time with these chicklets. Yeah, I was watching a no rough stuff type deal. When I was making that video. That's pretty great. So yeah, at Steve Bob JD, I really appreciate it. Please hit the like button for Anton. Wouldn't mind that for sure. The engagement always helps. And like I said, if you like these streams, if you're a fan of Better Call Saul, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to this channel as well. Like I've talked about, I always try to post in the community tab when I'm going live, but sometimes my schedule being what it is, sometimes it doesn't work. So if you're subscribed, you'll definitely get notified of that on the rare times that I don't post in the community tab. So really appreciate it, Steve Bob JD. Again, doing a better job promoting my channel than I am. I appreciate it. But so again, talking about just, everything that happened with Tuco and Gus. Again, you wonder. And again, I really like that scene because like I talked about in that video, again, not to repeat myself too much, but it really sort of, again, there were a lot of questions leading into Better Call Saul when Better Call Saul first started and the cartel came in. It's like, how was Crazy 8 out on his own somehow? And then how it doesn't make sense that Tuco would have replaced him when there's no way Tuco would have replaced Crazy 8. He would never have been, afraid of Crazy 8 or working under Crazy 8, anything like that. And of course, we knew Gus Fring was out there all along. But again, that scene was just unbelievable because it completely tied like I said, a perfect bow on that entire backstory where Gus was in charge of the northern Albuquerque territory and he was out there doing his thing. And then Tuco and Crazy 8 were in charge of the southern territory. And it is kind of crazy to think about that in the year 2008 with Crazy 8 being one of the few men still standing. I mean, Lalo's gone, Nacho's gone, Arturo's gone. All those guys were gone. And again, these guys don't have there's not a very long lifespan in the cartel. For all intents and purposes for a lot of people. But Crazy 8 managed to hang in there until '08, so you'd imagine that he had a very high-ranking standing in the cartel for sure, so it makes a lot of sense. Again, a lot of question in respect to when Tuco gets out of jail as well. That's a big question as well, because we know from the episode entitled Bad Choice Road, that was back in '04 in the timeline of Better Call Saul, where Lalo says to Hector that Tuco will be out in 11 months, which would be around '05, which would be kind of around right now based on Saul Goodman's license plate. But at the same time, Skinny Pete said to Tuco, you've been keeping it real since you've been sprung from prison. What's it been, like a year? That was in the episode A Crazy Handful of Nothing, and that was in '08, so that would be akin to maybe '07, maybe that sort of area. So again, the dates are actually really important if we want to be, very sort of strict sticklers for the sort of timeline and the canon of Breaking Bad. So it's a very important aspect of all this for sure. So. Man, so again, again, with there not being too really much to talk about leading up to this episode. Again, a quick thing before I'll talk about one more thing before I get into this spoiler here. But before I get into that, at Trish D, thank you again so much for the super chat. I would love an episode. I would love an episode or even half of an episode in the post Breaking Bad timeline where we get to see Jimmy reunite with QB, Huel, Francesca, and Kim. That's an interesting perspective for sure. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, when you talk about the post Breaking Bad timeline, are you talking basically about the Gene timeline at Trish D? Is that what you're sort of alluding to there? Because, that for sure. I mean, at this point, it's sort of just the sort of fate of Francesca. That was the only character who was sort of brought into the sort of end of Saul Goodman when we saw that flashback scene in episode 405, Quite a Ride. But to this day, the ending of QB and Huel, it was sort of just implied. It was very open-ended. Okay, so you are talking about like reuniting in the Gene timeline. Yeah, it would be kind of interesting. That would be kind of interesting. That would really sort of, I don't know how I'd feel about that. I guess it would be better than nothing. But if we don't see Patrick Kuby in the Breaking Bad timeline, but we do see him in the Gene Takovic timeline, I hadn't even considered that at Trish D. I don't know how I'd feel about that. I wouldn't hate it per se, but yeah, that'd be quite the twist for sure. I did not even really consider that as a possibility, Trish D. That is a heck of a statement right there for sure. In respect to Huel and Francesca as well. I mean, in respect to sort of character aesthetics, we know that the actor who plays Huel has lost a ton of weight, but at the same time, Jesse Plemons gained a ton of weight, and that didn't stop him from appearing in the El Camino movie. So. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting theory. I mean, I know a lot of people have speculated, myself included, on a sort of reuniting of Jimmy and Kim in the Gene Takovic timeline, but, of QB, Huel, and Francesca being there, that's an interesting question. I mean, Francesca makes the most sense for sure, just based on that, the phone call and that whole scene that you'd imagine is going to be addressed, where, Thomas Schnauz basically said, my bad, I was just joking, as I talked about a little bit earlier, in respect to it not being addressed because of, the entire premise of Chekhov's gun. But yeah, I haven't even considered QB and Huel. So yeah, food for thought there for sure. I kind of made an entire sort of half-joking video about a Patrick Kubi post-Breaking Bad miniseries spin-off, so you can go back and watch that if you want. But yeah, that's food for thought, and I actually hadn't even considered that, so yeah, something to think about, Trish D, and thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Yeah, at Ben Darling. Yeah, I did see that meme. I did see that meme when that movie came out. That is a funny one. So, ooh, but yeah, again, I don't know if this really means anything, but the actor who plays the camera guy is apparently doing an AMA tomorrow at 4 o'clock before the episode. And again, I mean, that's not too critical, but I was wondering, is he going to appear in the next episode because of it? That was sort of what I was wondering, and he wasn't listed in this upcoming episode. And I was actually thinking back to how, Better Call Saul starts in 2002, May of 2002, and of course that's when he was, I guess, a college student at the University of New Mexico. And I guess if we're in the year 2005 now, I guess maybe he could be a senior, maybe in his final year. I guess, you could always just say he's in graduate school. It's a very easy sort of literary device to, make that sort of make sense, as opposed to him still being a college student, if when he like 6 or 7 years later, or he could just have been a really bad student maybe. So again, that just for food for thought there for sure. I mean, I saw that, and I was wondering if he was going to appear in some capacity of, was Saul using these camera guys all the time? It's possible. Maybe after they graduate, they still work for Saul Goodman doing these sort of very fly-by-night Jerry Riggs commercials. I've thought about it. Who knows? So. At Rena Roach and the college kids, loose ends. I like that. Ooh, so yeah, I guess to sort of, get into, this is actually a different spoiler, if you will. It's actually sort of more about an actor who's appearing in this upcoming episode from what I saw on Reddit. It has nothing to do with the actual character. I don't know if people want me to sort of talk about this real quick. It apparently has to do somewhat with the new character Marion being played by Carol Burnett. I don't know if people want me to sort of mention this real quick. I don't know if it technically counts as a spoiler. It just as in respect to a sort of famous, not that famous actor appearing in this upcoming episode. So I guess spoiler alert. You've been warned. I feel like do it. That's funny. That's Suburban Catholic. But so yeah, you've been warned. And again, it has nothing to do with the character who he's playing. No, I'm saying no. I'm saying it's not. It's a new character. It's a new character. I think it's going to be a minor character. It's not. It's a new character. It's not Walter Jr. It's not. I mean, he may appear, but it's not from the spoiler that I've seen. I don't know if Walter Jr. won't appear. But again, maybe I shouldn't talk about it. I don't know. Again, it was kind of interesting. I know this actor. I knew something he was in. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what I mean. I feel like the show that he was in kind of jumped the shark after a while, but I thought it had its moments. It was a pretty funny moment. So, at Travis Gray, I heard of this, so just say it. So again, I don't know if it's a huge deal, but we all know that the character. Again, I'll do the big reveal here, but we all know the character Marion is appearing in this upcoming episode, and this sort of ties into this sort of Spanish language spoiler that was released as well. Again, so yeah, okay. I feel like I've been milking this for about a minute and a half here. So you've been fairly warned. And again, it doesn't really give anything away. It doesn't give away, what happens to Saul or anything like that. It's very, very mild. But according to this sort of thing I saw on Twitter, apparently the actor Jim O'Hare will be a guest star in a scene with Carol Burnett. He was very famously Gary Larry from from Parks and Rec. And again, I was sort of a fan of the show. I think the show had its moments. It was kind of funny from time to time. The last season definitely jumped the shark in all fairness. But yeah, so apparently Jim O'Hare is going to appear in a scene with Carol Burnett, and this is apparently going to appear, I guess. So At least this is what I saw on Reddit. I hope I didn't misread this or anything like that. So apparently Jim O'Heir is going to be in there. So if you're a Parks and Rec fan, that's kind of cool. Again, there's nothing given away here about the character or anything like that. But apparently he's going to be in a scene with Carol Burnett. So again, I always thought Jerry was kind of funny. In Parks and Rec, he definitely had his moments. So yeah, very anticlimactic at Nero. Oh man, that's right. But this is sort of the first part of that of this teaser. So yeah, again, it wasn't like Tom Cruise or nothing like that. I don't know if that's so funny at Nero. Oh man, yeah, I know people are maybe holding out for Tom Cruise here or Tom Hanks or something like that. So, oh my goodness, Jerry's gonna get killed 4 minutes in this episode. So, could that be old Jimmy and Kim? LOL. Hadn't really thought about that. To tell you the truth, didn't I know Bob Odenkirk on the red carpet said, there's this new character who comes in, this female who's just unbelievably important and is so sort of interesting here. And he sort of talked about that. And it was sort of leaked that it was Carol Burnett. So, that's the, I know maybe she's Judge Papadoumian, maybe. But again, to sort of tie into the sort of second part of this leak here. So again, I'm about to talk about, I don't know if I guess I could. There is, again, if you're not a fan of this, I apologize, but Courtney Reviews actually sort of tuned me into this when she posted, like I talked about a little bit earlier in the stream, in the community tab prior to the stream, where apparently while the episode description for this episode is very, very like short and cryptic, a new player gets in the game. Apparently the description for this episode that was in Spanish, and I believe this is real. I don't know if someone is pulling a fast one on us or something, and I guess we'll eventually know in respect to, when we see the episode tomorrow, but let's see if I can find it here. So again, going to, kind of get into it here in respect to this, the spoiler. So, but apparently, I guess if you know Spanish, apparently, a much more descriptive title was given for the episode description on the television here, and I'm about to get into it here. So, spoiler alert. Connor, I agree, going to be such a good episode. But so yeah, I think this is it here. So yeah, so again, someone posted this on Reddit. This was apparently a couple days ago, from what I saw. But my streaming service description of this new Better Call Saul episode. Again, I don't speak Spanish very well. Or at all, more or less. I know a few words, but again, if you know Spanish, this is I guess you already know what it says here, but this is again, we can see this title here: Jean se gana una adorable vecina para acusarse a su hijo y ofrecerle colaborar con él un plan maestro. So yes, I admit I did plug this into Google Translate. So apparently, again, this is much more descriptive than a new player gets in the game, but Gene wins over an adorable neighbor to approach his son and offer to collaborate with him on a master plan. Again, I don't know what's really going on here. I don't know if it's sort of a mistranslation, if really it's going to, I don't know if it's going to, if this is a man or a woman. I don't know if this is Carol Burnett. But again, I really feel like this really isn't too, I feel like this isn't that descriptive, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's much more than a new player gets in the game, but at Nero, that Spanish hurt me emotionally. My goodness, man. That is funny. So that description makes zero sense. Again, if you know Spanish, maybe this translation is not the best. So again, this is apparently what it says here. Maybe if you speak Spanish, this makes more sense to you. So yeah, that's Spanish. So at Suburban Catholic, I do not speak Greek. It would be kind of cool if I did. It's a pretty cool language, so. Gustavo level Spanish speaking. Yeah, that is actually kind of funny at Connor, where I have noticed that a lot of the Spanish speaking actors aren't, well, they're definitely not Mexican from what I know. I know that Mark Margolis is not Mexican, definitely. And I know Nacho Varga, not Nacho Varga, Michael Mandow. I know, again, not to sort of critique everyone's Spanish, but I definitely know that there's been a lot of sort of, I guess, definitely noticing how the Spanish of people like Gus Fring's character is not the most authentic, but, it is what it is. So, I mean, maybe if you are a native Spanish speaker, it is quite, quite off-putting to the ear. I couldn't really tell you, as you know, my Spanish is not very good. I have learned a couple of phrases from Better Call Saul, that's for sure. I mean, didn't when the episode entitled, what episode was it? I think it was Lantern in 310, the finale of that episode when Hector has a stroke. Didn't Gus Fring say to Hector when he was, trying to resuscitate him, doing CPR? What didn't he say? Something like "No te mueras, cabrón," something to that effect, like "Don't die on me, cabrón." Isn't didn't he say something to that effect? So now I know that. So a couple of hellos and goodbyes, and I can probably travel to Central America, and I'll be great. So, oh my camera's blocking some of the English translation. I'll try to move it over here in front of the chat. So maybe you can see it better there. I won't be able to see the chat, but yeah, Gene wins over an adorable neighbor to approach his son and offer to collaborate with him on a master plan. So that's the Spanish language description for this episode. Much more descriptive, if you will, than a new player gets in the game. I guess it's sort of along the same spectrum, if you will. It's kind of the same thing, but it's just, just kind of food for thought here. So again, you wonder if this sort of new player is Marion. You wonder if this new player is Walt or Jesse. You wonder if this new player is the Jim O'Heir character. They did say son, but again, there is a character listed here as daughter, and didn't it say, if I'm not mistaken, if I can pull it up here, didn't they say is sort of Suiho? Is that son? I think that is Iha daughter, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a character named daughter here. So that sort of makes sense in respects to that episode description. So new player, that clown Declan. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that whatsoever. I mean, I've definitely talked about that, how I've really enjoyed I really would enjoy to see Declan's character. So add an Agent Neptune to mean son. Okay, that is kind of confusing because we have a character named daughter here. So there we go. I knew I paid it a little bit of attention in high school Spanish class at Steve Bob JD. So Iha's daughter. So okay, cool. So yeah, so Kim's children. That's a whole nother thing. I've definitely sort of speculated, what comes next for Kim and whether or not she will, how she's going to live her life and sort of the sort of nuance that comes with that. I talked about that a little bit more in my previous stream, so you can definitely go back and check that out. So, does that say Vecina again at Alex Shozo? Again, I'll take your word for it because I did pretty terrible in high school, Spanish class included. So I'm not too well versed in the language. I know I know the lot of the words are gendered, so. It did say Vecina, so it is a female neighbor, right? Adorable neighbor. So, yeah, so I would imagine it's likely Carol Burnett. I would imagine the Marion character, I would imagine, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, adorable. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that this would finally be when Marion shows up. And, are we going to see Walt and Jesse as well? I talked about it a little bit in the beginning of the stream. How it's been reported by the Albuquerque Journal that they're coming back in this episode. So at Universal Basic Ramen, 53% Declan. So at Watch Peacefully 2007, I've shown my ugly face in so many of my videos. I showed it all the time. So yeah, definitely. Like I said, I'm holding out for a potential sponsorship here with this sunglass company. So I can't just be I gotta rock these glasses. I gotta rock these shades for sure. So, like I said, I've showed my face in plenty of videos. So, speaking of which, to sort of change the subject here, has the Vivid Kiwi ever shown his face ever? Does anyone know? Because I've wondered about that. Has he ever shown his face? I don't think I've ever seen. I have no idea what the Vivid Kiwi looks like. I don't think he's ever shown his face ever in any of his videos, even at the beginning of his channel. So, because I've shown my face plenty of times, but yeah, I don't know what he looks like. So. Never did a face reveal. He's an actual Kiwi, so. Yeah, I don't. Again, yeah, I wondered, so. I did not know, so. I actually was watching his previous video, and he actually kind of made a pretty interesting point that I actually hadn't even originally considered. Is that, speaking of Lyle, where he said to, Gus called Lyle at the end of 609 after Lalo died, and he said to him that he had to go out of town on a family emergency. And of course, when I first saw that, I thought this was just sort of an alibi lie that he was spinning to Lyle, but he was absolutely telling the truth, sort of, in a way where, he had a cartel family emergency that he absolutely had to attend to. So, again, that was actually a really interesting point that he made for sure in that video. But it was actually, at the same time, he did actually have an interesting sort of take in respect to Don Eladio and Gus Fring in the previous episode, because I discussed that scene as well. And, again, it was actually kind of interesting where he sort of thought that Don Eladio knew that Gus Fring was actually behind the murder of Lalo, but sort of due to the lack of evidence, he was unable to sort of, punish him, if you will. Again, I might be bastardizing the argument a little bit, but that was sort of what he was alluding to, where he thought he could control him to an extent, and when he finally was murdered by him in the episode entitled Salute in season 4 of Breaking Bad, he sort of, realized his mistake. But again, that was an interesting perspective. I hadn't sort of thought about that. I don't know about that. I don't know if, Don Eladio would be cool with, him knowing that Gus Fring took out Lalo. Again, I know there's a lot of sort of nuance to all of that, because we know that Juan Bolsa was the one who sort of ordered, those men to sort of intercept the bail money, because he knew that Lalo was sort of meddling with Gus Fring's business, and, that was affecting the bottom line of the cartel, so he wanted to keep him in prison. So, again, you wonder about that. I mean, Don Eladio seemed to show some affection for Lalo. He sort of liked his showmanship. But at the same time, would he be cool with sort of Gus Fring killing him and sort of knowing about that? I wasn't too sure about that. That was sort of an interesting perspective there. It's definitely possible, I would say, thinking that he could have sort of kept Gus in check the whole time. Maybe some sort of hubris. Yeah, to me, I really think the alibi was pretty airtight. And, I definitely chalk it up to him, just sort of, being very dismissive of the sort of, old, incapacitated man of Hector Salamanca. And, that sort of explains why he really wasn't a member of the cartel anymore, where, despite, everything he did for them, he was showing him respect, but at the same time, clearly mocking him with a dinging. So, and yeah, I almost forgot. That was actually a pretty sort of kind of interesting piece of throwaway dialogue there in respect to Hank Schrader and Steve Gomez in the episode entitled Bit by Dead Bee, when Hector comes in to be a potential witness to identify Jesse Pinkman, where he doesn't, as Steve Gomez said, old school gangbang Mexicans don't help the feds, and he said he kept his mouth shut for 17 years in San Quentin. So, yeah, it was kind of, I guess he was in San Quentin prison for 17 years at one point in his life. It would make sense that it would happen when he was much younger, maybe even when he was like 20 years old, maybe when he was in there from like 20 to, 37 maybe. It's definitely possible. And then, after that, he was just a full-fledged cartel member, sort of, buying, sort of, doing his time and just, doing what he was supposed to do. And that would cause a sort of great amount of respect for the cartel. Of course, what happens to snitches, that's for damn sure. Walter White told us all about that. So, yeah, just sort of interesting. And I kind of like how that, even that was a total piece of throwaway dialogue at the time, even as Vince Gilligan said in the Insider podcast for 609 after Lalo's death, how, the Lalo didn't send you no Lalo. It wasn't me, it was Ignacio. That was a total piece of just throwaway. It meant nothing, as Vince Gilligan said. When that was written, that meant nothing. There's no way they could have sort of put the puzzle pieces together and said, oh, we're going to make this spin-off in right after Breaking Bad ends. Of course not. But it's just kind of crazy how, all these throwaway dialogues, it's nice how they sort of tie a nice bow on a lot of it, and a lot of it doesn't get, completely contradicted. I know there is still some stuff that's sort of contradicted, like Jack Walker's infamous piece of dialogue, which contradicts the timeline of Breaking Bad. But, it is what it is. Overall, again, like I've talked about, I mean, no show is going to be perfect, and, just because Better Call Saul isn't perfect doesn't mean it's no good. I mean, it's been one of the better shows and one of the better sort of universes that has just been so strict and been so, has done such a sort of, made such an effort to sort of keep up continuity. So I know, again, I've talked about this a little bit in the past where, I know some Star Wars fans are basically saying how there is no more continuity anymore ever since Disney bought Star Wars. The continuity just, whatever. It's more about just, making these blockbuster films and, who cares about continuity? But yeah, so again, I'm very perplexed. Again, as I talked about a little bit earlier in my stream, they even talked about that. I think Michael Morris was one of the creators as well. I think he's maybe more involved in the filming aspect of the show, and he talked about just the meticulous nature of just the filming and how they'll do a shot and they'll look at it and be like, oh, there's something slightly off about this small little thing. We can make it better. So again, they knew they were having this close-up shot of '05, and it's so clear to us. But for Thomas Schnauz to say it's '07 for that handicap placard of '08, so again, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but again, it's kind of interesting here, where despite the fact that they're so just meticulous and so sort of what's the word I'm looking about? Scrupulous, is that the word? About these little details to just make this horrible, just egregious, enormous error right on the screen. I guess you could always, like I talk about, you could always explain it away as Saul Goodman is driving around with expired tags. It's definitely possible. Who knows? Maybe that'll be incorporated into the story of the next episode. So it's always possible. Yeah. At Universal Basic Ramen, yeah. There's no need for that, man. They're all good. They're great. So again, it's to teach their own. I don't want to but we're about positivity here. Not trying to denigrate anyone. So again, I would disagree with your assessment. You're entitled to your opinion, absolutely, but I would disagree with it. So I appreciate your support, but it's all good. So. Ooh, so yeah, I mean, it's it's still kind of surreal. I'm just sort of thinking about how there's only like what, 4 episodes left after tomorrow night. There'll only be 3 episodes left of this entire universe. So it's just crazy, man. It's just absolutely crazy to think about for sure. And yeah, you just like I talked about, just the fact that we're basically in just a complete blank slate here. And again, it makes a lot of sense to me who, just the fact that this sort of description would be so ambiguous, because the story can really go anywhere now. It truly can. The threat of Lalo Salamanca is now over for Gus Fring. All the sort of stories are sort of wrapped up here. Saul Goodman is now officially starting his life as Saul Goodman on screen in the plot of the series. Really, anything can happen. And to tell you the truth, it is actually kind of it's bittersweet for sure. I definitely know that the show can't go on forever, but it would be kind of interesting if we were really in '05 right now, and how you just wonder just about how much story could be told sort of leading up to Walter White and Jesse Pinkman appearing. But at the same time, maybe it would sort of tend to stagnate. So I'm very sort of perplexed and intrigued and sort of interested to see just sort of how the timeline is manipulated here, how sort of all the different characters like Marion and Walt and Jesse sort of factor into the story. So it's definitely some food for thought for sure. So. And it is, like I said, it is absolutely true, and it makes total sense to me that we're going to have this sort of brand new sort of story here about this, apparent lovely neighbor, and Saul Goodman sort of somehow enticing her to enact some sort of master plan of some kind. So, again, it's pretty crazy, and definitely not something I saw coming. And again, it's like why I was so unbelievably excited for the last episode, just because how open-ended it was, and it's even more so the same for this upcoming episode. So at Jeff Greaves, maybe. I mean, maybe we could see them in prison for in prison, yeah, in prison for sure. It's definitely possible. We could see them. I mean, I've talked about a little bit how maybe sort of Gus and Tuco, how that sort of storyline could sort of be introduced in these final 4 episodes. That would be great. I would absolutely love to see Skinny Pete and Tuco in some capacity. That would be such a callback. It would just be absolutely unbelievable. So yeah, the pattern slice 9900. Yeah, it's sort of leaning that way. I mean, if we don't see Gene here, it's really just sort of, really setting up for, the final episode to just be entirely devoted to Gene. And man, would it have been great if it was the original Jeff and not the recast. But, it is what it is, so. At T, yep, my echo, my shadow, and me. That's right. Was that if I'm not mistaken, what season was that in? That was I believe that was season 4, right? That was season 4. That was when that was the Ink Spot song that was played when Gina was being taken to the hospital, right? That was a great scene. My goodness, that was a great sort of scene there at T. I'm pretty sure that was season 4, episode 1, Smoke, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that I think that was the song that was overplayed there, overlaid in the opening scene there. That was great. So I'm trying to think. The first Gene one was again. I don't even. Again, I think what was it? It was Walking. No, it was which one was it? It was Address Unknown. That was it. It was Address Unknown for the first episode entitled Uno. I think episode season 2 was that but I think that was the Ink Spots. Was episode 2 or season 2 episode 1, which was what was the name of that? That was that Switch? Was that the song? Was that Sugar Town? Was that it? I think that was the one that was played there. Season 3 was oh my goodness, I'm blanking on what the beginning was for season 3. Season 4 was My Echo, My Shadow, and Me, but I'm trying to remember what song was played in season 3 again. What was the story? Season 3 was Get a Lawyer, right? If I'm not mistaken, or was that Sugar Town? I think season 3 might have been Sugar Town. I'm trying to remember what season 2 was. Was season 3 Sugar Town? Time Slips Away. That was right. Time Slips Away was a season 2. Sugar Town was season 3. Echo, Shadow, and Me was season 4, and then of course season 5 didn't open up with a song, but I think it was Welcome to My World when Gene was at the office. So those were the 5 songs, if I'm not mistaken, in order. So yeah, those again, great sort of. Even Vince Gilligan talked about that in the Insider podcast for 609, where there was a lot of music in that episode. Yeah, Sugar Town was a season 3, if I'm not mistaken, right? Season 3 was Sugar Town, and yeah, season 2 was Time Slips Away. Season 1 was Address Unknown. Season 4 was My Echo, My Shadow, and Me. Season 5 was Welcome to My World. But yeah, so, and that of course wasn't at the very beginning. But yeah, Vince Gilligan sort of talked about it at, in the Insider podcast for 609, and talked about how 609 had a ton of music, and he even himself said how music is just so important to scenes and sort of just, cultivating the sort of mood and the feel and the emotion of a scene. It's so important, and it's so true. I mean, I just go back to even the music in Breaking Bad. It was just just unbelievable sort of the music that was overlaid in those scenes. I remember even listening to I think I was listening to the Breaking Bad soundtrack and stuff like that. All the different songs that were played in there. So yeah, of course, yeah. Season 6 was Wine and Roses, and again that was sort of a that wasn't the Andy Williams rendition like in the trailer at Soft Batch, but it was sort of a new sort of recording of it. So. Yeah, that was. I mean, yeah, a lot of great. I mean, that was another great scene too, for sure. At Steve Garza, that Something Stupid montage. That was really well done. That was really well done at Steven Garza. I really enjoyed that. That was just a great montage, a great way to sort of show about a 9-month time lapse. And it was, of course, it was absolutely needed. It was absolutely needed. I've talked about that in previous videos. So great montage scene. So. Oh man, that's a fun Ad Bonanz '06. That's a funny name for a prequel. And yeah, I mean, on a more serious note, again, I've talked about this in previous videos as well. Bonanza '06. I wonder, how Huel Babineau is going to factor in the storyline. And again, sometimes they sort of change the original story for sure. But like I said, in season 4 of Breaking Bad, in Box Cutter, the first episode, it was definitely implied that Huel was hired as the bodyguard after Mike intended to break his legs, but or at least threatened to break his legs. But of course, we now know from the backstory, Better Call Saul, that Huel's relationship with Saul runs so deep, all the way back to season 3 in the episode entitled Chicanery, when he first hired him from the vet Caldera. And so we know that. But again, I always wondered, why didn't Saul hire Huel in season 2 or season 3 of Breaking Bad, despite the fact he knew him. So again, I know it's kind of a joke at Soft Batch. I'll get to that super chat. Thank you so much for sure. But again, it's kind of the sort of joke that I thought about is how in the world could you not notice Huel Babineau? Oh, Huel Babineau was actually there the whole time in season 2 and season 3, and we just didn't notice him. So Yeah, so again, I'm really kind of curious to see what happens with Huel here. It's actually kind of, somewhat critical to the sort of continuity of the series, so, definitely something to think about for sure. So, at Soft Batch, thank you so much for the super chat. I really want to know how you feel about the use of time jump. Were you bothered? I was. Are you specifically talking about the time jump that occurred this scene right here at the very end of episode 609 entitled Fun and Games? Or are you specifically talking about this scene at Soft Batch? And was I bothered by it because you were? And yeah, again, it definitely there's been lots of different manipulations of time in a Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. And as I talked about in my live stream review immediately after this episode, okay, cool, at Soft Batch, yes. This time jump here, it definitely reminded me of the time jump we saw in the episode entitled Granite State, where after Walter White gets to New Hampshire and he sort of sets up his life there, the very sort of next scene we see of him is several months later, where it was just sort of a very sort of quick, no montage scene, no music time jump. That's the first thing that came to my mind when we saw this very quick time jump as well. And again, I kind of liked it, to tell you the truth, a Soft Batch. I definitely know that some people didn't like it per se in many respects. I know everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I mean, to this day, I still wasn't the biggest fan of the ending of Breaking Bad. Of course, how Better Call Saul materialized after it, I'm much more of a fan of it now. But yeah, it definitely reminded me of the Granite State time jump. And are you just, speaking for you specifically, did you not like it because you just thought that, the whole reason why Saul kind of did this is now sort of the fact that he broke up with Kim, and this was sort of the sort of main sort of reason why he was able to go down this path, and the sort of reason why he did all of this was just sort of the termination of his relationship with Kim? So, again, that's at least the way I see it right now, is that basically, Kim sort of tried to, I guess, straighten up and fly right to the best of her ability, and Saul did the exact opposite. He just went further down the rabbit hole into this sort of criminality and this sort of debauchery, and Kim sort of went the other way. So, again, I actually didn't mind the time jump. I kind of liked it. It made me think of Granite State. Again, I don't know how I felt about that time jump in Granite State, to be completely honest, but I thought it worked here for sure. I definitely thought it worked in this episode, and it was needed. It was absolutely needed. I feel like, again, I've talked about how I kind of liked how, they've glossed over some of the sort of very nitty-gritty details of all of these scenes. At Soft Batch, we haven't sort of seen the step-by-step process of every single event. And, it's, I've kind of liked the way they've sort of told the story, In hindsight, we really didn't have to see, I would say, the exact step-by-step process by which by which Lalo Salamanca got his body double back to his hacienda. We kind of didn't have to see the sort of step-by-step sort of annulment of Jimmy and Kim's marriage. It's like, again, a lot of it is just sort of implied, and a lot of the story is just really based on you sort of really knowing the backstory of a Breaking Bad very well, the sort of ins and outs of all of it. So yeah, I've definitely noticed that for sure. You definitely have to know the backstory of Breaking Bad pretty well to sort of get all of the sort of very subtle details of Better Call Saul as a series, and I've definitely noticed that in season 6 for sure. So, at JT, how would you have wanted Breaking Bad to end? Well, I may talk about that in an upcoming live stream at JT, but I don't know. I've talked about this a little bit. Maybe, I would have wanted, I think Jesse Pinkman's parable would have been a sort of all-time great tragic parable had he sort of met his demise in Breaking Bad in the same way Ignacio Varga did. So that's what I was kind of hoping for of Jesse Pinkman's character per se. To tell you the truth, hey, how's it going, Courtney Reviews? I talked about that comment you made in the that community post. Appreciate the info. I talked about that for sure a little bit earlier in the stream. What's up? But yeah, to sort of get back into what I missed the at JT. I apologize. Yeah, at JT, to sort of get into back what you said about how I wanted that to end. Again, I may have wanted Jesse Pinkman to meet his demise. I may have felt it would have just made his story just kind of an all-time great tragic parable. And I have some things to say about Jesse Pinkman for sure. And if he comes back this week, I may be talking about how what I think about his character. I may be sort of getting into the nitty gritty of the backstory of Jesse Pinkman and sort of, talk about El Camino. That's really the sort of only sort of iteration of this universe that I haven't discussed, so far. I've talked about Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, but I haven't really talked about El Camino. So if you don't like at Glib Glob 87, if you don't like the last season of Breaking Bad, you have bad taste and watched too many Michael Bay movies as a kid. To tell you the truth, I mean, I thought just up until the episode Ozymandias, I thought that was just I mean just unbelievable. I mean just like standing ovation television at Glib Glob 87. And to tell you the truth, at the time, I just thought that just would have been an all-time cliffhanger, to tell you the truth. And Ozymandias, after Walt gets into Ed the Disappearer's car and drives away and the dog walks across the street, if that was sort of a cliffhanger to end the season and we had sort of one more season, because I definitely remember sort of during the red carpet sort of appearance of all of this, you saw these sort of group interviews that Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston and Anna Gunn and Dean Norris were doing, and even with Bob Odenkirk. I definitely even heard Aaron Paul say that a lot of the crew felt like they could have done one more season. They sort of felt they could have had one more season in there somehow. And you definitely would have known the next the final two episodes of Granite State and Felina would have definitely been done different if there was an entire season for sure. But at Glib Glob 87, but my goodness, I mean, up until Ozymandias, I even thought the cold opening scene and the sort of very first act with Saul Goodman arriving at Ed the Disappearer, I thought that was just absolutely unbelievable. Again, just unbelievable, to tell you the truth. And again, after that, the sort of what happened in Granite State and the sort of very sort of rushed ending. And I know rushed is a loaded term, but it is. I feel like there's a grain or two of truth to all of that. And yeah, I have some things to say about sort of the ending of Breaking Bad and El Camino. So at Glib Glob 87. So definitely, again, man, I've seen El Camino, and to tell you the truth, I think I've only seen it once. I only saw it one time. I don't think I've watched it I did not watch it a second time. But I pretty much get the gist of the story. But and I have a lot to say, and I know people might not agree with me. It's just my opinion in respect to Jesse Pinkman as a character. But just really sort of going back and looking at his character all the way back, even in season 1 of Breaking Bad, and sort of comparing his actions in season 1 to just everything he did throughout the course of 5 entire seasons of a Breaking Bad. I have a lot to say, and I think there's just a lot of sort of details and a lot of things that Jesse Pinkman did and a lot of the choices that he made that, again, I really just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like there's a little bit of a lack of accountability for Jesse Pinkman. And again, I mean, my goodness, that speech that Mike Ehrmantraut gave to Jimmy McGill about it's so true. It's so true what he said in Bad Choice Road about how we all make our choices. I mean, it's unbelievable writing there. It's my goodness, that was great. And yeah, so I'm not a big fan of awards, but I mean, did what's his name? Did Jonathan Banks get nominated for supporting actor Emmy for season 5? I don't even know. I didn't even really follow it. I know Better Call Saul hasn't won an Emmy. I know they've been nominated like 40 some times maybe, but they've never won. So that's a whole. But my goodness, that speech was so great, so true. I mean, you can even apply it to your own life. My goodness, so. At Richie MC, slipping Jimmy greater than sign El Camino LOL. That is too funny, man. I that is too funny. I haven't seen Slippin' Jimmy yet. Have not seen that iteration of this universe. Don't even technically know if that's canon, so that is funny. At Holden Thompson, I really feel like this time jump, the one you're referring to in 609, I would imagine, really hinges on prior knowledge of Breaking Bad. If none of us really watched Breaking Bad, would we really be scratching our heads saying, how did Jimmy get so low? Sorry, wait, let me read that again. I feel like this time jump really hinges on prior knowledge of Breaking Bad. Yes, absolutely. So if none of us watched Breaking Bad, we would really be scratching our heads saying, how did Jimmy get so low? Again, I'm sort of, missing the thought there. But yeah, I mean, it definitely hinges on that, I suppose. Um, Again, if you could clarify that a little bit, I'm kind of confused about the second part of that statement. But at Richie MC, do not watch Slippin' Jimmy. I haven't seen it. Probably won't. We'll see. So has anyone watched Slippin' Jimmy unironically out there? I mean, I don't know. So I mean, to each their own. I mean, it's your time. It's your free time. You can do whatever with you can do with it whatever you want. But I have not yet watched it. So at Billy Goat. What you talk about El Camino? Yeah, I mean, I did watch it again. I had this sort of hopes that maybe the sort of ending of Jesse Pinkman's character, maybe he would finally get that ultimate demise that I was kind of crossing my fingers for. But I sort of I'm like I know it probably won't happen. I think I know exactly what's gonna happen in this movie, but I'm gonna watch it anyway. But yeah, it is what it is. So at Courtney Reviews, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. What is your dream ending for what? For life or for this show? For Better Call Saul as a series? Again, I mean, are you talking about Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul before I answer that question? Because I was talking about the ending of Breaking Bad, but are you talking about Better Call Saul? And again, really appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. I hope things are going well for you. By the way, I saw you're like a true professional. I think you mentioned in the community post tab that you're like a college professor. So that's really cool. So LOL, answer any way you want. I'm in Better Call Saul. In respect to Better Call Saul, I mean, I don't even know. Again, it's almost surreal. I mean, it's sort of like I don't want it to end, if you know what I mean. So it's kind of like I'm sort of being sort of willfully ignorant of the fact that the show has to end in the first place. And maybe that's why I'm not really thinking about the ending in respect to this series. But again, I don't really know. And I mean, I wouldn't imagine that it's going to be some sort of, like I talked about in my previous live stream. I don't want to see any sort of, I don't know. To tell you the truth, I mean, I've talked about this a little bit. I mean, I'm trying, again, that's quite the question there. That is quite the sort of existential question there of, what is your dream ending for Better Call Saul? But I've talked about this a little bit in the past in some of my streams about how one of my favorite movies of all time is There Will Be Blood. And I loved the sort of just ambiguity of that movie. I just loved how just the ambiguity of everything, of morality, of the ending, of the characters, of who's the protagonist, of who's the antagonist, of who is good, who is evil. I just absolutely loved it. I mean, to not give it away, I mean, if you haven't seen the film, just unbelievable film. Paul Thomas Anderson film. But if I think that's who directed the movie, if I'm not mistaken. But if I love the sort of ambiguity of that ending, just total ambiguity, and you really, who knows what's going to happen to the sort of the main character at the end of the film. And I know that can be sort of done not correctly every single time. I know that was sort of done with The Sopranos, and I mean, I haven't really seen the show, but I saw the way it ended, and I don't know how I really feel about that ending of The Sopranos, and I know a lot of that was pretty contentious, but yeah. I've abandoned my boy. I've abandoned my child. Great film. Great scene there. When what was his name? Oh my God, was it Bandy? Of course, William Bandy. When he came to him, again, I'm trying not to spoil too much of the movie. When William Bandy came to him and said that he wanted him to be, he wanted him to be washed in the church of the third revelation, and when he said, "I'll pay you $3,000, I'll pay you $5,000," my goodness, again, just such a the way they introduced the humor into that film, despite the extremely dark nature of it. And yeah, I would definitely recommend it. Very ambiguous. It's definitely sort of the way it definitely it wasn't what I expected at all when I saw that film. It was just, yeah, again, it's a very ambiguous, but just totally what's the word? I'm not. It's so enticing, I was so just immersed in that film, just unbelievable. So yeah, great final scene at John Doman. At Holden Thompson again, and I hope that sort of answered your question. I don't know if I really answered your question there at Courtney Reviews, unfortunately, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, to sort of, think about it a little bit more at Courtney Reviews. I mean, to tell you the truth, I sort of always just I thought that Gene would get away with it the whole time. At Steve Bob JD, thank you so much. And Softbatch, thank you so much. I'll get to those for sure. But I always at Courtney reviews, I always just sort of thought that Gene would get away with it the whole time. I don't know. I just again, as Vince Gilligan sort of said himself, he's the cockroach who survived the nuclear blast, and you just think that he's gonna get away with it. You just think he's just gonna get away with it. But what's the sort of final iteration of this? Is it how he just sort of is able to just live his life, and he's just sort of a sad, lonely man who's just all alone, kind of akin to Robert De Niro's character a little bit in The Irishman, where he's just sort of in that nursing home, and that just sort of his life, and where he's still alive, but again, it's like it's really no sort of victory for sort of Saul as a character. And I've talked about this a little bit as well. It's so crazy how we root for a character like Saul Goodman just by the nature of him being the protagonist of the series. But again, he does so many not great things over the course of these two series. He's not, again, I'm not a philosophy professor. Maybe you are. Maybe you could speak to this much better than I can. But it's just so crazy to think how just morality and everything. It's just so ambiguous. And like, just because Saul did these bad things, is he a bad person? Is it sort of he sort of gets in too deep and sort of. Again, I don't even know. It's just sort of it's such a tough question there. When he's doing all these things like facilitating and poisoning a child and, just being okay with Walter White killing all these witnesses to save themselves, sort of saying, it is what it is. Again, it's so complicated and it's weird. I don't know. I don't know if he deserves a happy ending in the same way. I don't know if Kim deserves a happy ending. I tried to talk about that in my previous stream. I don't know if it was so hard. It was so hard to articulate, to tell you the truth. But again, I don't imagine it's going to be some sort of cheesy 90s rom-com ending where they sort of, kiss or something in the final scene like that. But again, I mean, as that trailer said, no matter what happens next, it's not going to go down the way you think it is. I really don't know what's going to happen at Courtney Reviews. I really don't know what's going to happen. So, yeah, again, I mean, I'd love to know your dream ending for sure. If you've sort of, changed your mind about it or sort of, because again, my sort of opinion on it can change by an hourly basis sometimes, even things, how I feel about, again, like I was very sort of, I really didn't care for the Breaking Bad ending, but and I even made some, videos about that, but sort of as Better Call Saul has materialized the show and just the way it's, been presented to us on screen, if Breaking Bad ended a different way, maybe we would have never gotten Better Call Saul. So just kind of food for thought there. And yeah, I have no idea how this show is going to end, but can't wait for it to find out for sure. I hope that answered your question. At Steve Bob JD, any shows you recommend to watch after Better Call Saul is over? Thank you so much for the super chat at Steve Bob JD. To tell you the truth, I don't watch a lot of like dramatic shows other than Better Call Saul because I tend to, well, at least with my personality, I tend to get really sort of immersed in a show when I watch it. I get really into sort of the nitty-gritty details and I want to know all the characters and all the backstories and everything. So I haven't seen a lot of the very great shows out there. Like I know a lot of people have talked about Ozark. I've never seen it. I've never seen Ozark before. And I mean, this may sort of surprise you, maybe not, but I tend to watch a lot of sort of lighthearted things in addition to, this show. Like, I even watch things like Family Guy. I know, I mean, it's not for everyone, but I kind of, it's a nice sort of juxtaposition, a nice sort of contrast to just all the sort of seriousness of Better Call Saul and the sort of, the fact that you have to watch it sequentially and how you really have to pay attention to all the details. Sometimes, you just like to watch a show like Family Guy where there is no real continuity or canon. It's just sort of a funny show. And I mean, it had its ups and downs. There were a couple seasons lately that weren't so great when they were trying to like win an Emmy or something. Like the episodes with like Quagmire's sister and stuff like that. Those were kind of weird. But as it's just kind of gotten back to sort of breaking the fourth wall and just kind of making fun of itself, I watch shows like Family Guy. So I'm probably not the best person to ask, honestly, Steve Bob JD, to watch like in regards to my taste in television shows outside of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, because I really don't watch a lot of them. To tell you the truth, I kind of like to watch just much more simple shows. So even like I said, Family Guy, stuff like that. I've seen Archer. I like Archer. Again, it's kind of it's getting a little bit more deep. I would say as the show progresses, the story writing is getting better over the course. More complexity to the characters and stuff like that. But stuff like that. So I'm probably not the best person to ask, to tell you the truth, Steve Bob JD. But really appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. And sorry, I missed the. I'll get to that for sure. At Softbatch, thank you so much for the super chat. Do you count information from Breaking Bad / Better Call Saul outtakes into the overall story to piece things together for a better understanding? Are you literally talking about the blooper reel, or are you talking about the deleted scenes at Softbatch? Yeah, thank you again so much for the super chat. But yeah, are you talking about deleted scenes, or are you talking about the blooper reel? Because I've seen both of them. Some of those bloopers are pretty damn funny, to tell you the truth. Definitely worth the watch. A little bit surreal to sort of see the characters, the actors sort of breaking character at Soft Batch. But if you are you talking about? I would imagine you're talking about the deleted scenes. Are you talking about the deleted scenes being canon, or are you talking literally about the blooper reel, like of Walter White screaming? Okay, the deleted scenes. Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, at this point, you imagine they would be canon. And to tell you the truth, I think I talked about this a little bit earlier. Not earlier in this stream, but in a past stream. I'm pretty sure, again, I'd have a hard time finding it. It was either in a sort of DVD commentary episode for during season 1 of Better Call Saul, or an episode of the Insider Podcast, where I even think at Softbatch that one of the it wasn't one of the main creators. I don't remember who it was who said, we don't have to sort of, or no, I'm sorry. I was thinking about something else. I think it was Vince Gilligan talking about continuity, where he said they really try to, really hold firm in respect to the continuity at Softbatch. But he said, but don't hold us to continuity in deleted scenes, because, again, of all the deleted scenes, the one that really stands out is, of course, the one that takes place in season 3 of Breaking Bad at the Beachcomber Apartments when Walt visits Saul. And of course, the one money shot piece of dialogue there was when Saul said he had 3 ex-wives. That's really the only real piece of sort of critical throwaway dialogue where even the creators themselves, I think, sort of wondered whether or not they were going to adhere to this, because way back in season 1 of Better Call Saul, I definitely remember Vince Gilligan talking about that Soft Batch, about how he sort of made that joke saying, please don't hold us to sort of deleted scenes, dialogue as canon. But they did. In the end, they absolutely did. In Wexler v. Goodman, in JMM, when they got married at the Bernalillo County Courthouse at Soft Batch, the person working behind the registration desk said, "Can I have the sort of notice of your previous 2 annulments?" Right, and so it implied that Kim was Saul Goodman's 3rd wife, which absolutely adhered to continuity in the deleted scene of Breaking Bad. So that's the only one that really stood out to me as like very sort of critical and maybe could cause a plot hole in the continuity at Soft Batch. I'd do better if you were sort of talking about or would refer to a sort of more specific scene in deleted scene, because I've seen some of the deleted scenes, and again, a lot of them are sort of just extended takes or sort of different takes of a lot of scenes, but again, there really wasn't a real crucial piece of dialogue outside of that. And what's crazy is, just like the sort of Lalo Salamanca dialogue of Lalo didn't send Lalo, it wasn't me, it was Ignacio, just total throwaway dialogue at the time. But in season 3 and during that episode, when Saul says to Walt, why? Because your wife kicked you to the curb. This is where every middle-aged washout goes when their wife gives them the boot. The Beachcomber Apartments. I've been here myself. Last stop on the loser train. And again, totally throwaway dialogue. Totally just a sort of funny piece of dialogue here, where Saul Goodman is the comic relief to cut through the dark nature of the plot of the series. Again, it's sort of a lighthearted joke here that's trying to, cut through the very dark nature of Walter White's story. And it's crazy. At the end of the day, they completely adhered to the dialogue. So yeah, it's that was pretty awesome. I definitely liked how they did that for sure. Again, if I'm not mistaken, in respect to Saul Goodman's Beachcomber Apartments dialogue, I think in season 2, if I'm not mistaken, of Better Call Saul, during that flashback scene in the episode entitled Rebecca, I could try to pull it up here. He said when he moved from Albuquerque to Cicero, he said when he visited Chuck at his house that he was looking for a place. The Beachcomber has a pool. And again, he did say that he kind of implied that he moved to Albuquerque or he lived in the Beachcomber Apartments after his wife kicked him out. And I guess that's sort of true, maybe. I mean, he was definitely married 2 times in Cicero, apparently. So maybe he had just been divorced recently before the whole, Chicago sunroof incident. So again, that's kind of an interesting piece of dialogue there for sure. So The fact where he said, Chet was a real asshole. He may have owed me some money. He may have slept with my wife before she was my ex-wife. The details aren't important. Suffice it to say, I was wrong. And of course, that's implied to be his first wife. But at the same time, he tells Walt in oh my goodness, I'm blanking on the episode here. He tells Walt in season 3 of Breaking Bad, and I believe was it IFT? I think it was IFT when it was IFT if I'm not mistaken. When or was it no, it was the one after IFT. It was after Skylar told him that she had sex with Ted in green light, where he said, you act like this is the only guy that ever happened to. I caught my second wife screwing my stepdad. It's a tough world out there, Walt, to grow up. So again, though that's the second wife, and Kim is the third wife. So I hope that sort of answers your question at soft batch. Outside of that one dialogue in respect to Saul Goodman's marriages, I don't know of any deleted scene from a Breaking Bad well, you did mention Breaking Bad, I suppose, in your super chat as well. Or at least, yeah, that the Breaking Bad deleted scene. So yeah, of all the Breaking Bad deleted scenes at soft batch, I think that was the only one that really had the potential to sort of mess up the continuity. But yeah, I've seen a couple of the Better Call Saul deleted scenes as well, but again, none of them, I don't think any of them have had a problem in continuity as well. And again, I've seen them, but none of them come to mind. I've definitely seen a couple of them, but like the one of Lalo leaving the travel wire after he burns it down in season 4 of Better Call Saul. Yeah, that's soft batch. Appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. Yeah. So yeah, I've seen the deleted scenes for sure, and of a Better Call Saul as well. But I wouldn't imagine that any of them had contradicted continuity. I feel like I would have seen something on Reddit or somewhere. So. At full Hay 1, that would be pretty hilarious. I have talked about that. That would be kind of hilarious, so we kind of got more of an insight to that, but I don't think we will. Definitely a piece of throwaway dialogue. That was an absolutely hilarious scene in Green Light when Walt fires Saul with his second ex-wife screwing his stepdad. But yeah, I guess Saul was just, or Jimmy at the time, and Cicero was just young and foolish and in love. So, he definitely, two women made quite the impression on him, and he got married twice and divorced twice, so it's been known to happen. It's been known to happen for sure, so. At Courtney Reviews, do you think they'll get divorced? Jimmy and Kim, I would imagine you're talking about. I think they'll stay legally married, can't be compelled to testify against each other. That's a great point. That is a great point. File cannot be closed, foreshadowing. Yeah, someone talked about that a little bit earlier, actually, about whether or not they think, the Howard Hamlin's body will somehow get out of the super lab. Maybe. Again, they would have to make. He clearly has a bullet, a gun. I guess he could have technically killed himself. A gunshot wound to the head is definitely possible. But then, of course, they'd probably want to find a murder weapon as well. I talked about, though, it kind of like if they move Howard's body out of that, out of the super lab, I feel like it kind of diminishes just this sort of artistic brilliance of that sort of final scene to conclude 608 point and shoot. So I would imagine a lot of those bodies could stay in there, I suppose. But I've definitely thought about that. I've definitely thought about that for sure. Maybe it's foreshadowing. But who knows? It's definitely some food for thought. And that's actually a great point you raised about whether or not they've been legally married. Because as Saul said, 3 marriages, the Beachcomber Apartments, last stop on the loser train. He didn't say he was divorced 3 times. That is true. He didn't say, he didn't say he was, I don't think he said he was divorced 3 times. He did say he was married 3 times, but I don't think he said he was divorced 3 times. So that's a pretty good point. I never even thought about that. And we sort of don't know the sort of, but then again, you do wonder. I actually talked a little bit earlier, Courtney Reviews, about how maybe we didn't need to see the sort of 1-year gap, depending on the timeline, as I talked about at the very beginning of the stream, of, everything that happened with Jimmy and Kim leaving each other. But that's a great point. We don't know. That's true. Maybe they were married this whole time. That is a great point, Courtney Reviews. We don't know. And maybe we'll find out in this next episode. Looking forward to finding out for sure. So. My dream ending is more akin to fan fiction. That's funny. Oh yeah, but I see this the super chat here as well. Just making sure I put in at Rena Roca. Thank you so much, Rocha. Thank you so much. What Better Call Saul Breaking Bad character did you hate the most? Marie? I definitely didn't hate Marie. I don't think Marie is a hateable, at least not me personally. Was there a lot of hate on Marie? She was definitely playing the part. It was Hank Schrader's wife. Her personality made a lot of sense to me. just based on everything that she sort of went through. I mean, I don't know about sort of went through, but I didn't hate on Marie. Who was my what character did I hate the most? To tell you the truth, I don't know if I've ever really thought about that question. Um, I don't know if I ever hated a character per se. Definitely, I think hate is the wrong word, but like to sort of answer your question to the best of my ability at Rena Rocha, and thank you so much for the super chat. I don't hate this character. I do not hate this character, so I just want to make this abundantly clear. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm the biggest Jesse Pinkman fan, if you will. I don't hate him, but I don't know if I'm team Jesse Pinkman, if you will. I know a lot of people love Jesse, and a lot of people, absolutely love his character. And I think he does have a lot of redeeming qualities, I think he's not I don't hate him by any stretch of the imagination, not even close. But I think there's a little bit of a hero myth, if you will, in respect to Jesse Pinkman, maybe a little bit of a romanticization of his character. So, yeah, I don't know if I hate any character, but again, I'm not I think there's a little bit of a myth, a little bit of a hero myth in respect to Jesse Pinkman's character. That's just my own opinion. I will talk about it a little bit in the future. I know a lot of people won't agree for sure. But yeah, I mean, I don't hate him, but I don't understand the sort of reverence or the revering of his character. That, I mean, again, you're absolutely entitled to your own opinion. You can if you want to, but I don't hate his character. But yeah, I would say that for sure. And I have a lot of thoughts about Jesse Pinkman and El Camino that I've yet to talk about, that I will hopefully talk about, maybe even this upcoming week if Jesse Pinkman appears in the plot of Better Call Saul after tomorrow's episode, or during tomorrow's episode. Courtney reviews in respect to the plot of Howard, even if they never recover the body, either Jimmy or Kim could tell the truth about what happened in their apartment. Interesting. Okay, if that's what you're sort of getting at. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that Saul never says anything because I feel like they could be sort of complicit in something illegal. Definitely, again, I'm no lawyer. Maybe a legal expert can sort of, tell me about, everything they did over the course of season 6 of Better Call Saul, if there's actually anything criminal there that they could be charged with, because again, Saul seems to be skating by scot-free and being totally above the law and doesn't have any of these sort of, things looming over him or hanging over his head. Could Kim maybe be racked with guilt and tell the truth? Maybe, but then again, you wonder how Gus Fring would sort of be implicated in that, to tell the sort of the whole truth and nothing but the truth, if you will, and you wonder if, how Gus would feel about that at Courtney Reviews. So definitely sort of some food for thought there for sure. So again, I wouldn't imagine Saul telling the truth. Maybe Kim could tell the truth, just being racked with guilt, but I don't know how Gus would feel about that. So that's interesting. At Courtney Reviews, if that makes more sense. So it would maybe happen in the Gene storyline. Yeah, I could see that. There we go. Yeah, I see what you're saying now. Now that Gus is dead, and now that Mike is dead, maybe she finally comes clean to sort of, I guess, tell the truth. It kind of reminds me of that story that was it Anita told Mike in Better Call Saul, if that's her character's name. I believe, what was the episode? If I can find the episode here. It kind of reminds me of the story of closure she told at the meeting. Wasn't that in season 3 of Better Call Saul? The episode escapes me. It was definitely right before Mike found the body when he was searching for it, but something about just finding closure, about, truly knowing what happened, and maybe even giving a character like Cheryl closure. If that's what you're getting at, I could see that for sure. It happening in the Gene timeline. That makes a lot of sense, actually. I hadn't even considered that. I appreciate that theory. But yeah, it definitely sort of reminds me. It wasn't in chicanery. It was definitely in well, it was actually no. It was, yeah. He ripped off the truck and nailed. And was it off brand? Was it, if I'm not mistaken, no, it was. I think it was in expenses. That was the. I think that was the one where Anita talks about. Yeah. The support group, Mike befriends Anita, and she recounts how her husband, was it her husband or was it her friend's husband disappeared? I'm not actually sure about the description. I have to go back, but it was definitely someone disappeared and sort of just never having the closure. And that's what sort of made, Mike end up doing that deal with Price, who maybe will appear in Better Call Saul. I mean, I don't know if they're just trolling us on IMDb, but that's what made him do the deal with Price, and ask Nacho where he found that body or where they buried that body, so he could give the family of that innocent bystander closure. So yeah, I do like that theory, Courtney Reviews. I really do. I could see it for sure. It makes a lot of sense. It doesn't really make sense just based on Gus Fring's meticulous nature. But yeah, it definitely makes sense in the Gene timeline. So yeah, I like that theory for sure. So yeah, Casper's lie pins. Cheryl doesn't deserve closure. I think that's a little bit harsh, to tell you the truth. I know, like I talked about this a little bit earlier in my stream, and we know that the sort of the marriage wasn't working out, and we know that Cheryl came across as kind of I mean, I don't know. I've heard the word, jaded thrown around a little bit. But again, we don't know what their relationship was really like. And, despite the fact that maybe it was a sort of tumultuous relationship, I mean, I know some people said that it was maybe crocodile tears that she was shedding, but again, we don't know how people mourn. And just because they had marriage problems, it doesn't mean that she, wasn't truly upset with what happened to Howard. And again, I don't think she deserved anything that Kim did to her. Just because she didn't come across as the most maybe likable, if you will. That's why maybe people feel like she doesn't deserve to know what really happened to Howard. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but yeah, I see what you're getting at for sure. I can see the perspective, but at the same time, like I think I heard Peter Gould, it might have been Peter Gould, or I'm not exactly sure, on the Insider Podcast for 609, kind of say that lie that Kim told to Cheryl's wife was kind of her breaking point. That was like truly her point of no return, where I guess breaking point would be the better term, where she just really felt like, my goodness, I just did a horrible thing to this woman to sort of justify my alibi. And not only that, like, he even said, like, maybe she was just sort of taken aback by how believable and how good she was at it. So yeah, just a lot of food for thought there. So a lot of nuance for sure. I think like most things, there's a lot of gray area to all of it. I don't know if it's black and white. So, but yeah, I do like that theory, Courtney Reviews. I appreciate that theory for sure. So, at Nick Russ, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Just supporting the stream. Thank you for all you do. Can't wait for tomorrow's episode. It's almost slipping time. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the support. And yeah, I'm glad you enjoy the streams. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow too, for sure. So, it is almost slipping time. So, ooh, I mean, that being said, I mean, I know I probably don't do a good enough job promoting this channel, but again, if you're still around, if you enjoyed this stream, I'd appreciate, I really appreciate all the chats. That's unbelievable. If you liked it, thumbs up, that would be really cool too. Like I said, if you enjoy these streams, I'd appreciate if you subscribe to this channel as well. Kind of sort of hitting that at least for me, pretty big milestone. So the half the 5K. So it would be pretty cool if you decide to subscribe. So I'll just leave it at that. So, but again, just watching and commenting, that's really cool too. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much again, Nick Russ. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. And it's like I said, it's kind of weird. Like, I really wasn't sort of, I don't know if like, I don't want to misquote myself here, but or kind of misstate myself, but it's kind of weird. I've been so much more excited for like fun and games in this episode now, 610 Nippy, than even I was for 608. Because to tell you the truth, I kind of had this sneaking suspicion. I kind of already knew what was going to happen. I didn't know, but I kind of knew. And even as Courtney Reviews said, she actually had a great. She called it like I think weeks or months before, right after I think it was Black and Blue, when it was weeks before when I guess including the midseason break, but when Gus put that gun in the machine in the super lab and then picked up the light and counted his steps, absolutely planning on shooting in the dark, just absolutely nailed that theory for sure, Courtney Reviews. So again, I definitely don't blame you for sure for giving it away from me, but I definitely saw it for sure. I'm actually kind of curious, like when you saw it too. I mean, did you sort of, when you were watching it for the first time, I mean, did you see that ending coming? Absolutely. I mean, it's in the moment exactly. Like, so again, as soon as Lalo walked in that room, I just absolutely knew. There's no way out for Lalo's character. And then of course, when Gus Fring was totally telling him off, I knew for a fact that there's no way Lalo gets out of this. So It is what it is. But again, like I said, it was still amazing to watch. And like I said, the fact that it's just so open ended here in these, even fun and games in these final four episodes. I'm just the fact that it's so open ended and there's really not a lot to go on. It just makes me so excited. Really, anything could happen, and that's why I'm just so excited for these final four episodes. So. According to reviews, when I watched it the first time, I was like, WTF is Gus doing? What is Gus doing taking those steps, giant steps? And then I saw him plant the gun and it was like, counting the steps, darkness. Yeah, again, absolutely, absolutely, totally nailed it there. So, I mean, it made total sense that he was going to shoot in the dark, and that's exactly what he did when we saw it. So, at Softbatch, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Thoughts on how Saul comes to start hitting on Francesca and calling her HT? Is Sailor just totally unleashed from Viagra and Xanax or what? Okay, so I'll address the first part of your question there. Again, a lot of it is just sort of implied by the backstory of Breaking Bad, and actually, I believe is the actor's name Tina Parker, who plays Francesca. She was on the Insider podcast for the previous episode, and it was just sort of implied that, her becoming this sort of hardened, just no nonsense character from this very optimistic character, it was just a result of her. As a result of her working for Saul Goodman for all these years. And again, I guess, while we saw the very optimistic Saul and Francesca at the very beginning of the montage scene of 609, which was completely contrasted by how we saw her at the end of that episode, you would just imagine that her just working with Saul is what caused her to become so hardened like that. But again, I don't know if Saul's actually hitting on Francesca. I think he's sort of being half serious, if you will. I think if Francesca sort of was down for that, I think Saul would maybe would be happy to engage in sort of that sort of relationship. But at the same time, I think he's just sort of that's sort of who Saul is. He's sort of vulgar. He says these crass and crude one-liners. He's vulgar. He's uncouth. Based on the Better Call Saul webisodes, if you take that as canon, you actually asked about the deleted scenes. But I've wondered if that sort of live Saul cam is canon, where he's literally having sex with a prostitute in his office, which was absolutely implied. Again, I talked about that in a previous video, how that was, of course, again, mostly just comic relief. But of course, now with the nature of Better Call Saul as a series, it just adds all this sort of different layers of depth and complexity to all of that. So again, I just think it's just a sort of very subtle sort of a transformation of Saul's character to becoming, who he was in Breaking Bad compared to who he was in Better Call Saul. And is Sailor just totally unleashed from Viagra and Xanax or what? I don't really know what you're getting at the second part of that question. I know Saul has a prescription for Viagra based on the flashback in Wine and Roses. I know he says he has a Xanax guy in the previous episode. He talks about how his chiropractor, Kim Lu Song, prescribes Xanax to him. So, again, I do better if you sort of clarify the second part of that comment at Softbatch. So, I know Saul does both those he does both of those drugs based on the canon of Breaking Bad, but I do better if Sailor, I'm not sure what Sailor is. Sailor is just totally unleashed from Viagra and Xanax or what? Yeah, Nero barn door open. Yeah. Definitely was implied. Saul, okay, Saul, okay, sorry, autocorrect Saul. So Saul is just totally unleashed from. Oh, I see what you're saying. So basically, what his drug use is causing him to do that. Again, I don't know if it's a sort of direct correlation or anything like that, but I definitely think, again, it's just sort of a very subtle sort of transformation that occurred over that year. And it would be kind of interesting to see. I did kind of wonder how they were going to display to us that transformation. And again, the sort of the way that they sort of displayed it with the time jump. I know not everyone was a fan of that, like you were saying. So yeah, it's just sort of I don't know if it's necessarily he's doing these drugs and that's why he's acting that way. I think it was just sort of the gradual transformation of his character, and which included him saying these things and just being very vulgar with his secretary Francesca, and with doing drugs like Xanax. I mean, I feel like doing Xanax, I feel, is maybe more detrimental to your health than you would imagine. Maybe he even needs that. Maybe he actually has a prescription for that Viagra. The Xanax, maybe not so much. But so yeah, again, I think it's just sort of the slow sort of transformation of his character to who he was in the plot of Breaking Bad. So that would be my kind of answer to all of it. So. Neuro, yeah, I guess maybe it is self-medication. I don't know. I've never used it, so I can't really speak on it. But to each their own, I suppose. So again, kind of a humorous piece of throwaway dialogue at the time, and even when they displayed it to us in the previous episode, it was humorous as well. So hey, how's it going, Brian C? How's it going? So. At Soft Batch. Yeah, like I said, I think he was only half joking. To tell you the truth, Soft Batch. I think I don't know what Francesca is definitely not up for it, but to tell you the truth, I think if push came to shove, if Saul was given the opportunity, my interpretation of his character is he absolutely would. So. At Agent Neptune, thank you so much for the super chat. Love your channel. Looking forward to tomorrow night. Me too. Like I talked about, really looking forward to tomorrow night. That is for sure. So. Really appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. Yeah, at full hay, yeah, again, that was sort of pretty cryptic, the sort of for Don Eladio thing with the fly. Again, I don't really know if they really addressed that. We know that Don Hector wrote Don Eladio a letter, but that was definitely a tape that was displayed to us with the fly. So I don't really know the sort of cryptic meaning behind that. I talked about that a little bit in a previous video and in the stream for the previous episode. But yeah, just very sort of some food for thought there for sure in respect to that. I don't know what they're getting at. And I know people pointed out that, a fly that was alive when Walt and Jesse were cooking in the lab definitely is not going to be alive when Howard and Lalo's bodies are decomposing. That's for damn sure. So. Yeah, it's Sam Fisher. Me too, for damn sure. It's bittersweet for sure. I was, really looking forward to this final season, but it is what it is. It's bittersweet. I think that's the best way. So. Ooh, man. So yeah, that I think I'm gonna have to end the stream there. But yeah, I really appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate all the super chats. Really great conversation. Really appreciate all the support that you've given to this channel. Really appreciate all the theories, and again, I always learn things from the chat that I hadn't considered. At Soft Batch, thank you again so much for the super chat. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Like I said, I'll be alive after tomorrow's episode, Nippy. We'll go live right after the episode airs. Really looking forward to it. If you're still around and you enjoyed this stream, like I said, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to this channel. Support would really mean a lot. Kind of approaching that big milestone like I talked about for me in 5K, so that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, I'm got a couple things to do tonight still. It was a long day, but a really good day, but definitely a long day, and I still got some things to do. Have a good night as well. Courtney Reviews, thank you so much for the super chat. Again, really appreciate it. Again, really appreciate all of the sort of perspective you gave as well. A lot of things I hadn't even considered. So, really like that sort of a Kim coming clean theory in the Gene timeline. Hadn't even considered that. So really appreciate that. But yeah, again, if you're in the U.S., I hope you have a great rest of your night. And, it's almost here. I guess we're less than 24 hours away now. So take care, everyone. Thank you again for all the support. I really enjoyed the conversation tonight. And have a great night. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.